Chapter 2732. You are my descendant. Do you have the right to inherit my legacy? What is this? This means that our Night Clan will have an emperor god. Ha ha ha, the Night Clan is blessed. Ha ha ha, we have an emperor god. I wonder which old ancestor will inherit Ancestor Yi Lung's legacy. That's great, that's great. Our Night Clan will be able to rebuild our glory. Emperor God, Void Emperor. Every time the God Emperor's divine kingdom opened around the Rain Domain, it was a crucial event for the entire Night Clan. They prayed that an old ancestor would inherit the legacy and rebuild their glory. This time, an old ancestor had finally succeeded. Buzz. At this moment, the place in front of them trembled. The gate of the palace at the top of the God Nation opened slowly. A dozen figures flew out. Congratulations to Night Clan, old ancestor Yi Yuan, for obtaining the inheritance and inheriting the former emperor's legacy. A group of people flew out and some protectors of the imperial court congratulated them. Ha ha ha, Big Brother has inherited the legacy. Our Night Clan finally has an emperor god. Among the dozen or so people who flew over, an old man roared with a flushed face. Congratulations to old ancestor for inheriting the legacy and becoming an emperor. Congratulations to old ancestor for inheriting the legacy and becoming an emperor. Millions of people immediately knelt down in the direction of the Void God Nation and shouted excitedly. Ha ha ha, I will inherit the legacy and rebuild the glory of the Night Clan. Thank you, Imperial Court, for taking care of us. Imperial Court will be our best ally in the future. It's all thanks to the help of the two old ancestors of the Sky Edge sect that I was able to obtain the inheritance. From now on, the Sky Edge sect will be our most loyal friend. The Sky Edge sect's matters will be our Night Clan's matters. All of you, follow my orders. At this moment, a loud voice was heard from the highest palace in the God Emperor's kingdom. As soon as he finished speaking, two old ancestors flew out from inside. Both of their eyes were filled with excitement, and their bodies were extremely excited. They had been very lucky to enter the God Emperor's kingdom and made it to the end. However, they weren't the descendants of Emperor God Yi Lung, so they weren't qualified to inherit the God Emperor's legacy and the Void God Nation. However, they had helped an old ancestor of the Night Clan to become an emperor. Moreover, they had agreed that the Night Clan would help the Sky Edge sect with something. The Night Clan's old ancestor Yi Yuan was naturally excited and agreed without any hesitation. He directly promised that the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect would be the best of friends. In the future, the Sky Edge sect's business would be his business. To be able to obtain the promise of a Void God Emperor, this trip was a huge one. In the future, their sect would be second only to the Imperial Court and the Night Clan in the entire Imperial Star region. The rise of the World Edge sect was just around the corner. All of you, obey my command. Everyone from the Night Clan responded loudly. Everyone in the Night Clan knew what the birth of a Void God Emperor signified. Naturally, they obeyed their ancestors' orders 100%. After I go into seclusion for a few months, I will raise the Void Divine Kingdom. After a final sound came from within the palace, the doors of the palace slowly closed. Congratulations, everyone of the Night Clan. We will take our leave now. When God Emperor Yi Yuan raises the Void Divine Kingdom, our great ancestor will come to congratulate him. The group of Imperial Court protectors cupped their hands towards the few old ancestors of the Night Clan and left. Protectors of the Imperial Court, take care. The old ancestors of the Night Clan cupped their hands with smiles on their faces. Two from the World Edge sect, this time, my big brother can inherit the legacy of the ancestor. Thank you for your help. In the future, the World Edge sect will be the benefactor of the Night Clan. After the protectors of the Imperial Court left, the old ancestors of the Night Clan immediately looked at the two old ancestors of the World Edge sect who were faintly disappearing in front of the Divine Kingdom. They said very politely and enthusiastically. They also knew that the reason why Yi Yuan could become a God Emperor this time was because of the help of these two old ancestors. Yi Yuan would naturally repay them, and the Night Clan would naturally repay them as well. The legacy of the ancestor of the Night Clan can only be inherited by the people of the Night Clan. We only helped a little. The two old ancestors of the World Edge sect replied politely. Ha ha, We of the Night Clan will not forget your kindness. Our God Emperor also said that in the future, your matters are our matters. We of the Night Clan know that some small matters have happened to the World Edge sect. Don't worry, we of the Night Clan will help you settle it. One of the old ancestors of the Night Clan said with a relaxed smile. Thank you, everyone of the Night Clan. When old ancestor Sky Edge and the rest heard this, they clenched their fists and bowed to express their gratitude. Ha ha ha, we should be the ones thanking the two of you. The people of the Night Clan laughed. Father, grandfather, the old ancestor is going to become a god emperor. That's great, that's great. At this time, a young man walked over excitedly and said to the current clan leader of the Night Clan. Hee, yes, young king. After your old ancestor holds up the divine kingdom, I will ask him to help you increase your strength. The god emperor's means are unpredictable. He can directly raise you to the undying god king realm. The clan leader of the Night Clan rubbed the young man's head with a smile. Young King Yi was the first child he had after breaking through to the pinnacle of the undying god king realm. It could be said that he had a son at an old age, and he doted on him a lot. This time, it was his direct ancestor who had broken through. His status and that of his son were no longer the same as before. Yes, thank you, father. Young Emperor Yi's eyes were filled with excitement. Now that the old ancestor had become a god emperor, his status would undergo an earth-shattering change. In the past, if he was the young master of the Night Clan and had a distinguished status, some experts of the imperial court and some disciples of the emperor's daughters could ignore him and even offend him. The experts from the other great sects could also completely disregard them. But it was different now. His old ancestor was a god emperor. Now, except for the descendants of the god emperor and the top experts of the imperial court, no one in the entire imperial star region dared to disrespect him. The leader of the large sects. The old ancestors of the large sects. They had to be polite when they met him. The Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. At this time, his eyes flashed with a hint of malice. Not long ago, it was him who forced him to kneel and humiliated him. This hatred, his eyes flashed with a cold light as he looked at the Sky Edge old ancestor and the others. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. The Sky Edge sect had a feud with the Dragon Palace, and so did he. I want the Dragon King to kneel in front of me and beg for mercy, and the Emperor Star Princess, young King Yi thought. What happened on the Cold Night Island in the Rain region wasn't announced immediately. The current Yi Yuan of the Night Clan hadn't truly stepped into the God Emperor realm. He still needed some time to absorb. When they became enemies, it would be the time for the world to celebrate. Wang Xian didn't know what happened on the Cold Night Island. He also didn't know that the Dragon Palace was a threat. But Wang Xian got a piece of good news from Demon Fiend. In the abyss, a peak undying god king abyss species raised its head excitedly and took out a communication stone plate to send messages. Chapter 2733, Demon Fiend succeeded. At the front of the abyss, Wang Xian smiled when he saw the message Demon Fiend sent. After more than half a month, he hid beside a pinnacle god king abyss species for more than 10 days. Today, he finally managed to parasitize it. After parasitizing, Demon Fiend also controlled the entire race. Among the 100 million abyssal species, there were over 10,000 Immortal King and 10 Level 9 Immortal King. These 10 were all parasitized. Demon Fiend could do much more after controlling an abyss species. At least, even if 2 or 3 pinnacle Immortal King experts from the Imperial Court entered the abyss, Demon Fiend wouldn't be afraid. In the abyss, he knew how to use the terrain better than the other abyssal species. Du Ju, contact Demon Fiend and continue the hunt, said Wang Xian to Du Ju with flickering eyes. Yes, Dragon King, I'm already in contact with Demon Fiend. Du Ju nodded and said. The Imperial dynasty will suffer even more losses this time. Wang Xian's eyes shone coldly. Now that the 1,000 experts from the poison department had parasitized the various teams, the abyss had sufficient strength. With them working together, as long as they entered the abyss, they wouldn't be able to come out alive. What happened next was just as Wang Xian had predicted. In the next 5 days, 3 teams from the Imperial Court entered the abyss. 3 teams, about 2,000 people, were surrounded and killed by Demon Fiend. With Demon Fiend's command and Venom Hornet's help, it was a piece of cake to kill them. Moreover, the death of 2,000 experts in just 5 days was too short and didn't cause any commotion. However, on the 5th day, Wang Xian suddenly received a piece of bad news from Orokai. Dragon King, it's bad. Old ancestor Yi Yuan of the Night Clan is about to ascend to the Emperor realm. He only became a god emperor because of the help of the 2 old ancestors from Sky Edge. The 2 old ancestors from Sky Edge said that Sky Edge's matter is Night Clan's matter. The Night Clan will help Sky Edge to deal with Dragon Palace. They even said that the God Emperor will kill us. Also, old ancestor Sky Edge and young master Yi Xiaohuang of the Night Clan came over to discuss revenge. That brat Yi Xiaohuang was disrespectful to you. Dragon King, do you have any instructions? When Wang Xian saw the news, he was slightly taken aback. His expression turned extremely solemn. An expert from the Night Clan was about to become an emperor god, and he would help the Sky Edge sect to deal with the Dragon Palace. A divine emperor is helping the World's Edge Great Sect. Wang Xian's face darkened as he knitted his eyebrows. This was a huge crisis for the Dragon Palace. Dragon King, the Imperial Court has always had a good relationship with the Night Clan. Now that the Night Clan has a god emperor, even if the Night Clan attacks us, the Imperial Court will not say anything. They might even agree. However, Dragon King, I have an idea. If we can use the parasites on the 2 patriarchs of the Sky Edge sect, we can change the situation. Orokai continued to send messages over. Wang Xian was deep in thought. Did they say when they attacked us? Wang Xian asked Orokai with a solemn face. Dragon King, according to the news, they might attack us after Yi Yuan of the Night Clan becomes a god emperor. According to old ancestor Sky Edge, Yi Yuan will need a few more months to become a god emperor. During these few months, we must make our preparations. Orokai replied. A few months. Wang Xian frowned slightly. If he could use the parasites on the 2 patriarchs of the Sky Edge sect in a few months' time, it was totally possible. This way, the crisis could be resolved. It shouldn't be a big problem, he murmured. Currently, the resources of Demon Fiend were enough for the Dragon Palace to produce 2 peak immortal God King experts. With Orokai and the others as spies, it would not be difficult to use the parasites on the 2 patriarchs of the Sky Edge sect. Pay attention to the news from the Night Clan. We have to use the parasites on the 2 patriarchs of the Sky Edge sect. Wang Xian sent a message to Orokai, asking him to pay attention to the situation. Yes. Orokai nodded. The alliance between the Sky Edge sect and the Night Clan, and an expert from the Night Clan had become a Void God Emperor, brought some pressure to Wang Xian. Sky Formation, how many peak immortal God King experts do you think we need to fight against a Void God Emperor? Wang Xian looked at Sky Formation at the side and asked. Dragon King, there's a huge gap between the Void God Emperor and Undying God King levels. However, for an existence that has just stepped into the Void God Emperor realm, if I were to have 10 roving heavens working together, I would definitely be able to fight against a First-Order Void God Emperor. Sky Formation pondered for a while and said, under normal circumstances, 10 Dragon Palace members of the same level could fight against someone 1 level higher than them. But there might be more of such a realm. 10. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow. Other than Sky Formation, the Dragon Palace only had 4. It would be difficult to add another 6 in a few months' time. Hurry up and improve. Wang Xian murmured. Once they became enemies with the Imperial Court, the Dragon Palace would have to face the entire Imperial Star Domain. By then, the pressure would be even greater. The current Dragon Palace was still too weak to face such a colossus. At least, not even half of the 400,000 members of the Dragon Palace were Divine Kings. Just the Imperial Court alone had millions of Divine Kings. Wang Xian did not know the exact number. In the next 10 days, Demon Fiend and Du Ju worked together and started a frenzied massacre. After a dozen or so days passed, the Imperial dynasty sensed something else. The number of experts in the Imperial Court was decreasing at a terrifying rate. In the past 20 days, none of the Imperial Court experts who entered the abyss came out. It was the same situation as a month ago. According to the feedback from the disciples, All the teams and experts that entered the Imperial Court were killed. The same thing happened to the Night Clan too. Moreover, we discovered something. Those teams that didn't belong to the Imperial Court or the Night Clan were mostly fine. On a planet at the front lines of the Imperial Court, 8 old men stood in a palace. One of them said with a bitter expression, "Is it that guy?" An old man beside him said with a gloomy expression, "I don't know. In just 20 days, we lost over 20,000 Undying God King experts and over 100,000 Divine Master level disciples." The old man continued to speak. "Since the start of the Abyss War, we have lost over 70 to 80,000 Divine King level disciples. Damn it, let's go into the Abyss and kill them," an old man in the middle roared furiously. Chapter 2734. The 8 of us can't all charge in, otherwise, the same situation as before might happen again. At most 2 or 3 of us will enter the Abyss. If we fight, it's best not to have more than 5 people. Within the palace, an old man said. The other 7 people's faces darkened as they slowly nodded their heads with unsightly expressions. If too many God King Peak experts entered the Abyss, it might attract the attention of the black magic type Abyss God Emperor. If such an existence flew over, it could easily kill them. Even if the God Emperor level existence didn't charge over, as long as it roared, it could instantly command all the God King Peak Abyss creatures to attack. When the Abyss War broke out, the 10 protectors of the Imperial Court charged into the battlefield to kill the Abyss creatures. However, a roar came from the Abyss and all the Abyss creatures attacked. 1 protector died under the combined attack of the God King Peak Abyss creatures. Hence, the Imperial Court didn't dare to send large numbers of God King Peak experts in to kill. The 2 of us will lead a group of 200,000 disciples into the Abyss and kill a large Abyss creature to relieve some pressure. An old man looked to the side and said, "Sure, the 2 of us together." The other old man immediately nodded. "Be careful. We will send 2 more people to follow behind the other disciples and see what's going on. Who is targeting us? Or is it a special Abyss creature?" the others said with twinkling eyes. "All right, let's split up." The group nodded and prepared to move. At the same time, Duju also received the news from Venom-Horned Dragon. Recently, many Deacon Elders had reported to the Protectors about the deaths of large numbers of teams. The Imperial Court team had entered for more than 20 days and the Abyss creatures never returned. There was definitely something fishy going on. The Imperial Court would definitely be cautious and investigate. When they started to form a group of 200,000 people, Duju also received the news. After the news was sent to Mo Shaw's expression turned serious. 2 Undying God King Peak experts are leading a team into the Abyss. Other than them, there might be other God King Peak experts doing other things. "We need to be careful," he murmured, his eyes twinkling. "Why not find allies and fight them head-on?" Mo Shaw squinted his eyes twinkling. After staying in the Abyss for more than 2 months, he had some understanding of the situation nearby. Currently, there were a total of 15 Undying God King Peak abyssal species here. At the same time, there were more than 10 huge abyssal species. The largest race had at least 1 billion abyssal species, with 3 Undying God King Peak abyssal species leading them. The other Peak God King Realm abyssal species experts all had at least 100 million abyssal species subordinates. They each had their own positions, and many of their subordinates were free to move around. If they could persuade a few abyssal races, they would directly charge over when the Peak God King powerhouses of the Imperial Court arrived. Who's afraid of who? It's totally doable. We can bluff them. As long as 2 or 3 tribes agree, even if they send 3 or 4 Peak God King experts, we won't be afraid. Who knows, we might even be able to kill a Peak God King expert of the Imperial Court. Mo Shaw murmured. Very soon, a few hours later, the Fiend Demon sect received news that the 2 guardians of the Imperial Court had already organized 200,000 disciples and experts to fly towards the Abyss. More than 20,000 Undying God Kings, the rest were Eternal God Lord level 8 and above. They had locked onto a race that had a Peak God King Abyss species at the border. However, they didn't seek to kill that Peak God King Abyss species, they just wanted to kill all its subordinates. Hearing this news, Mo Shaw squinted his eyes. His figure flashed, and he quickly flew towards the nearest large abyssal race. Mo Sha flew over, and roared at the peak god king abyss species. That peak god king abyss species saw him flying over, and its cold eyes stared at him as it let out a warning. Between the abyssal species, if it wasn't for God Emperor level existences suppressing them and ordering them not to kill each other, they would have killed each other before the humans even had to deal with them. Even with a God Emperor level abyss species suppressing them, the races were still filled with vigilance. It was hard for two races to help each other and work together. There's a human expert leading a large number of experts to attack a race, let's go and kill them together. Mo Sha sent a message. Roar roar. That peak undying god king abyss species roared, and stared at him coldly without any response. Mo Sha was helpless, and continued to use his silver tongue. He roared at that peak undying god king abyss species for more than 10 minutes, and that peak god king abyss species finally showed a hesitant look. Quick brothers, let's surround them, kill the human experts, and devour them. Delicious food. Mo Sha continued to speak to that abyss species. Roar. After close to 20 minutes, that peak god king abyss species was finally tempted, and it roared. Quick, call your brothers, we'll head over immediately. Delicious food is waiting for us. Mo Sha roared with a dry mouth. Roar roar. That peak undying god king abyss species turned around and roared at its subordinates. Behind, the group of abyss species roared in unison. Roar. That abyss species stared at Mo Sha, and signaled for him to lead the way. Mo Sha felt slightly helpless, and immediately nodded. He led the way, and also called his 100 million abyss species underlings. Originally, he wanted to persuade a few more peak undying god king abyss species. But after seeing this situation, he completely dispelled that thought. Unless one used strong martial prowess to order them, it would be too difficult to persuade a few peak god king abyss species to move together. Moreover, to Mo Sha, these abyss species were too brainless. If you lead your underlings to attack, you would have to stab them in the back secretly. This abyss species was simply shouting, "I want to stab you," from a distance of 100 meters. Wasn't this telling the opponent clearly? However, Mo Sha had no choice. Abyss species of the same level wouldn't listen to his orders, and wouldn't care about him at all. It was already not bad that he could convince it to move together. We will lock onto that peak undying god king abyss species, and leave the rest to you. Wipe out this group of races, and don't leave a single one alive. At this moment, the two protectors of the imperial court had already led 200,000 disciples into the abyss. They had locked onto a large abyss species. This battle was a battle of morale, to raise the morale of the imperial court disciples. Chapter 2735. Kill. With the protector here, let's wipe out these abyss monsters. Kill. What happened in the abyss last time and this time had indeed caused many imperial court experts to feel fearful. In just 2 short times, over 30,000 imperial dynasty god king experts had fallen. Among them, the elder-level powerhouses had all died. Many imperial court experts were already fearful of the abyss species. Because the next time they entered the abyss, they would be the ones disappearing. This time, the protector personally led them to kill the abyss monsters. Many experts understood that this was to increase the morale of the imperial dynasty experts. Under the leadership of the 2 elders, the experts and disciples of the imperial dynasty were filled with confidence. Staring at the group of more than 100 million abyss species in front of them, all the experts and disciples charged forward. Restrain that bastard. The 2 protectors stared coldly at the peak undying god king abyss monster and charged over. Roar roar. In the center of the abyss monsters, the peak undying god king abyss monster stared coldly at the 2 imperial dynasty experts. It didn't fear them at all and charged over. A terrifying aura spread in all directions. With a violent roar, it ordered all its subordinates to tear apart the humans in front of them. All of a sudden, deafening roars reverberated across billions of kilometers. Kill, kill, kill. The experts of the imperial dynasty locked onto the powerful abyss species one by one. An overwhelming amount of energy covered the area in front of them. Battle erupted. This level of battle was considered a large-scale battle. But such battles had happened dozens of times since the war broke out. This wasn't the first time the Imperial Dynasty protectors led teams into the abyss to kill abyss monsters. Some of the smaller abyssal species in the surroundings immediately hid when they saw such power. Kill, kill, we are suppressing them from all sides. The advantage of humans was that they knew how to make use of their own advantages. When the enemy is weak, we fight. When the enemy is strong, we retreat. It was the same for the Imperial Dynasty. They knew that these races weren't as strong as their 200,000-strong army, which was why they attacked. The abyss monsters were stunned. In such a situation, they wanted to tear apart all the humans and swallow them. In an instant, the Imperial Dynasty's side was suppressed and many of the abyss monsters were killed. Ha ha ha, awesome. Kill, kill, kill. The Imperial Court experts hunted down the abyss demons one after another with fighting spirit on their faces. Powerful weapons were arranged in teams to form a phalanx defense. The abyss monsters could not attack them at all. This made the Imperial Dynasty experts' eyes shine with excitement. Above, the undying god King Peak Abyss Seed was fighting against the two Imperial Court protectors, occasionally letting out heaven-shaking roars. However, under the restraint of the two protectors, it could only passively resist. The two protectors also knew that it would be difficult to kill him, so they did not risk their lives. The battle continued. In half an hour, at least 40 million abyssal species had been killed. Fuck, these idiots. They know they can't win, yet they don't run. At this moment, Demon Fiend, who had tricked a group of abyssal creatures, led a group of abyssal creatures and flew over to the battlefield. When he saw the situation on the battlefield, he couldn't help but complain. If he were to encounter such a situation, he would definitely lead his subordinates to escape immediately. Moreover, he would escape to other abyssal species. Would humans still dare to chase after him then? Big brother, lead your subordinates and charge over. I will block their path of retreat. Demon Fiend immediately roared towards the peak undying god King Abyss Seed. However, the peak undying god King Abyss Seed seemed to not hear him. It stared at the battlefield with bloodthirsty eyes and roared. The subordinates behind it also raised their heads and roared. It was as if they were telling the other party that they were here. Demon Fion's face turned black when he heard their roars. If they knew how to work together and surround them from the back, wouldn't they be able to kill them all at once? Damn, what idiots! Demon Fiend roared and ordered his subordinates to follow behind him. He flew towards the path of retreat of the Imperial Court experts. What he wanted was to kill the Imperial Court experts. As for the two Imperial Court protectors, they were not strong enough to kill them. Damn, why are there other races coming to support? At this moment, the two protectors who were restraining the peak undying god King Abyss Seed heard the roar and their expressions changed. Why are there other abyssal species coming to support? Don't they not support without orders from experts? What is going on? Did they evolve? The two Imperial Court protectors couldn't help but roar. In the past, the abyssal species rarely cooperated with each other. As for such support, there was even less of it. Why were there suddenly strong races coming to support? This made them suspect whether the abyssal species had evolved. The powerful abyssal species weren't stupid. It was just that they lived in an environment filled with bloodshed, killing and devouring to evolve. They basically didn't communicate with each other. The strong ruled, so they didn't scheme against each other. Only kill, kill, kill. When fighting humans, the powerful abyssal species evolved and knew how to support. They guessed. If Demon Fiend knew what they were thinking, he would definitely spit out blood. In the mind of the powerful abyssal species, there were a few orders from the God Emperor level abyssal species. One was to stop them from killing each other. The other was to help each other. The abyssal species followed the first order but didn't follow the second. In the bones of the abyssal species, other abyssal species were also prey. It was basically impossible for them to cooperate with each other like humans did. Maybe the God Emperor level abyssal species knew but didn't care. Stop them, we can't let that peak undying god King abyssal species charge into our Imperial Court army. An Imperial Court protector roared with an ugly expression. They realized a very serious problem. Maybe the abyssal species' intelligence had increased. Maybe this was also the reason why so many Imperial Court disciples were killed. All Imperial Court disciples, retreat from the abyss, retreat from the abyss. Another Imperial Court old ancestor immediately ordered. The expedition this time had run into trouble. Shit, another two powerful large abyssal species are charging over. Maintain the formation and retreat, retreat from the abyss. Immediately, the dozen or so elders who were leading the group of 200,000 people immediately gave their orders loudly. They were caught off guard by the sudden attack of the two large abyssal species. Chapter 2736. The 200,000 experts of the Imperial Court looked solemnly at the abyss race that was attacking them. Under the obstruction of the elders, they retreated one by one. At this moment, Demon Fiend and his underlings were about to reach their rear. Demon Fiend wanted to cut off their retreat, but the experts of the Imperial dynasty reacted too quickly, such that they weren't able to do so. Even so, they were able to clash head-on with the 200,000 experts of the Imperial Court. With their strength, they could stop many of them. The abyssal race, which had been lured over by the Demon Fiend, chased after them. That peak undying God King abyss race would not help the one that was being surrounded. Its blood-red eyes stared at the 200,000 people of the Imperial Court, filled with bloodlust. Damn it, go stop one and ask for reinforcements from the other protectors. In the sky, two protectors were attacking a peak undying God King abyss race. Seeing two leaders of the abyss race charging towards their disciples, their expressions changed. They only had two peak undying God King experts, they could not hold back three at all. One of the protectors gritted his teeth and moved, swiftly attacking the closest peak undying God King abyss race. Su. At the same time, a red flame flew out of his body. The flame had a long and eye-catching red line as it shot into the sky. An eye-catching signal flare stood in the abyss and could be seen from very far away. This was the Imperial Court's unique signal to request for reinforcements. And it was of the highest level. This time, it wasn't just the two protectors that entered the abyss. There were three others that entered the abyss and they were investigating why their disciples had gone missing recently. Hold on, our Imperial Court protectors will be here soon. Hold on. An elder shouted when he saw the signal flare rising into the sky. Keek. Demon Fiend's peak undying God King abyss race let out a weird roar. He exploded with all his might and arrived before the 200,000 Imperial Court experts. Not good, block it. Attack this abyss race with all your might. An Imperial Court elder looked over and his heart couldn't help but tremble as he shouted with an ugly expression. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the next moment, waves of terrifying law energy enveloped towards Demon Fiend. Roar. The devilish demon sneered and let out a furious roar. A stream of black flames surged forward. Zzz. All the black flames were corroded in an instant. In the next moment, the Demon Fiend was already charging forward. Bam bam bam. His 5,000-meter-tall body charged towards the row of people in front of him. Ah! When the Demon Fiend's attack arrived, a blood-curdling scream rang out. In an instant, the thousands of people in front of him were killed by the Devil Fiend. He opened his mouth and swallowed them into his stomach. Devil Fiend raised his head and roared in excitement. His eyes were fixed on a few Ninth-Order Immortal God King Realm Elders as he charged towards them. Not good. Guardian, save us. We can't stop this undying God King Pinnacle Abyss species. Terrified voices spread out from the mouths of the Imperial Dynasty's experts and disciples. Facing the terrifying demonic aura, they dodged to the side in fear. This kind of existence was not something they could contend against at all. Roar. Demon Fiend let out a wild roar as he charged towards one of the elders. That elder's body trembled. Ah, I'll fight you to the death. He roared in anger as his fists covered in flames punched towards Demon Fiend. Bam! However, what welcomed him was a huge claw that grabbed onto his body. The dark corrosive energy started to erode his life force. Die. With a sweep of Devil Fiend's violent tail, 5,000 to 6,000 people died under his attack in an instant. Run. When an elder saw this scene, he ordered with some fear. The formation dispersed as everyone hurried to hide in the surroundings. However, in the short period of time that Demon Fiend attacked, They missed the best time to leave the abyss. The group of abyss species at the back was closing in. 2 races of abyss species, hundreds of millions of abyss species. Among them, there were many powerful abyss species. How were they going to defend against so many abyss species? Not good. We're doomed. If the Guardian doesn't come over soon, we're all doomed. When the 200,000 experts of the Imperial Court saw the abyssal beasts attacking them from all directions, all of them had a look of horror on their faces. A peak undying God King abyss species was wreaking havoc here, and now there were hundreds of millions of abyss species charging towards them. In less than 10 minutes, they would all be annihilated. Bastard, you're courting death. At this moment, an angry roar could be heard. From afar, a figure charged over with terrifying might. Roar. Demon Fiend looked over and saw an Imperial Court Guardian charging towards him. His face was filled with malice. He moved and immediately attacked the Imperial Court experts around him. None of the Imperial Court experts could withstand his attack. Terrifying might wreaked havoc and hundreds of Imperial Court disciples were killed every second. These were all God King experts from the Imperial Court. Moreover, Demon Fiend's target was those above the 5th Order Undying God King realm. In a short period of time, the number of elders that died in his hands had already reached 3. Moreover, when the Guardian charged over, he would be able to kill at least 2 more of them. Demon Fiend roared in excitement as he continued to hunt down the surrounding Imperial Court experts. Almost there. After swallowing an elder, Mo Sha sensed that the Imperial Court Protector had flown over. Roar roar. His figure moved and he directly faced the Protector. Little ones, hurry up and hunt. At the same time, he transmitted his voice to the members of the Poison Department. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. The members of the Poison Department replied loudly. Their bloodthirsty eyes stared at their targets as they charged towards them. Roar. Why are there 2 more abyss species appearing all of a sudden? When the Protector of the Imperial Court saw that the 3 races were surrounding the disciples of the Imperial Court, he roared out furiously with an extremely ugly expression. These bastards seem to have evolved. They actually know how to provide support. Some of our disciples should have died in their hands. One of the Guardian replied with a dark expression. As for why only the Imperial Court experts had died and the other teams had suffered lesser casualties, they had already forgotten about it. The reinforcements from these 2 races had caused the Imperial Court to suffer heavy losses. We will block the peak Undying God King abyss species. You guys charge out. The Protector who arrived last roared furiously. Chapter 2737, Escape, quick, escape. RRR, save me, I don't want to die. Get into formation and charge. At this moment, the 200,000 Imperial Dynasty people had been scattered by the demons. Now that they were being attacked by a few 100 million abyss monsters, it was tough for them to escape. It was also tough to form a team to charge. Everyone, come to my side. Just at this moment, an elder's voice rang out. He waved his arm and a hat-like weapon floated above him. It slowly grew and expanded into a domain. Peng peng peng. In the surroundings, the attacks of the abyssal species landed on it one after another and were directly blocked. As experts of the Imperial Dynasty, many of them had strong trump cards and life-saving methods. This elder's life-saving treasure couldn't be destroyed unless one was a peak Undying God King. Moreover, everything within 100 meters was covered. He immediately brought a few 100 experts and disciples in and charged out. Wait here, I will come and save all of you. He let out a roar and flew outside. I will fight it out with all of you. An Imperial Dynasty deacon was surrounded by a few 100 abyss monsters. He hollered in despair and took out a round ball that shone brightly. Hong! In the next moment, the ball exploded. The terrifying destructive power formed a vacuum in a 10,000-kilometer radius. All the abyss monsters around were killed. Even a few 100 Imperial Dynasty disciples were blown to death. Tens of thousands of abyss monsters died. Tragic, it was extremely tragic. When the surrounding Imperial Court experts saw this, they revealed extremely embarrassed expressions. Damn it! In the sky, an Imperial Dynasty protector looked down with an ugly expression. He wanted to personally lead the troops to raise the morale of the disciples, but he didn't expect such an outcome. Out of the 200,000 experts and disciples, it would already be considered good if even a tenth of them could escape. Kill. Die. RRR. Following that, the intense battle continued. Under the joint attack of the Abyss species, the 200,000 experts and disciples of the Imperial Court were dying rapidly. Half an hour later, only a few thousand of them were still alive. As for the rest, they had either fled or died. Let's go, don't get entangled with them. In the sky, the expressions of the 3 Imperial Dynasty protectors were extremely ugly when they saw this. A protector roared, wanting to get rid of the undying god King Abyss seed in front of him. The other 2 protectors nodded helplessly when they saw the situation. They retreated out of the abyss. The 3 undying god King Peak Abyss creatures couldn't stop them at all, they could only roar out in rage. Mo Sha's eyes swept across the surroundings, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He roared and immediately rushed over. The other 2 undying god King Peak Abyssal species also roared and charged over. In the void, there were still many corpses of abyssal species. At this time, it was time to divide the spoils. The 3 leaders roared, and the rest of the abyssal species immediately retreated. Mo Sha stared at a few high-level corpses and immediately flew over. Roar. The other 2 abyssal race leaders roared at him. Roar. Roar. Next, to Mo Sha's helplessness, another wave of roars rang out, and the 3 of them almost started fighting. It couldn't be helped, the other 2 leaders wanted more corpses, and Mo Sha had to talk to them for a while before they were done. If not for the God Emperor level abyssal species orders, without his persuasion, they would have started fighting over these corpses. Mo Sha muttered. This was also one of the reasons why it was hard for the abyssal species to work together. Mo Sha brought the corpses, roared at his subordinates, and left immediately. How are the spoils of war? How much did we lose? Calculate it. Mo Sha immediately transmitted his voice to his subordinates. Roar roar. The few undying God King subordinates nodded, and started to calculate the spoils. Boss, 15 undying God King corpses, over 30 undying God King corpses, and over 3,000 God King corpses. 13 of our brothers have fallen. A few unlucky ones were killed by the self-explosion of that terrifying weapon. They've all been absorbed by the soul-returning branch. Very soon, one of his subordinates reported to him. Not bad. Mo Sha nodded indifferently, he still had 4 undying God King corpses in his stomach. In his hand was the corpse of an undying God King level 9 abyssal species, which was killed by the Imperial Court experts. All in all, Mo Sha and the rest had gained quite a lot this time. The Imperial Court side had suffered heavy losses. Hoo, the abyssal species are helping each other. Did they really evolve? At this time, at the entrance of the abyss, the 3 protectors of the Imperial Court looked at the disciples in front of them with gloomy expressions. There were 200,000 of them when they came, but now there were only 8,000 left, less than 10% of them. It was supposed to be a battle of morale, with 2 protectors leading the troops, but the result was like this. This was a huge blow to the Imperial Court. Damn it. The abyssal species might have really evolved, it's going to be troublesome. One of the protectors by the side roared in anger. The abyssal species were stupid, not because they were stupid, but because of the environment they lived in. Now that they had more contact with the humans, they might be able to think of ways to work together and fight against the humans. This kind of evolution was something the Imperial Court did not want to see. Once the abyssal species worked together, the Imperial Court would have to pay a much higher price to hunt them. This was the territory of the abyssal species. No matter how smart they were, the Imperial Court would not be able to handle them. We have to report this to the Grand Ancestor, one of the protectors said solemnly. The other 2 nodded in agreement. This way, the danger of the Abyss battlefield had increased, they had to report this to the Grand Ancestor. Then, the group flew towards the frontline planet of the Imperial Court with ugly expressions. What happened in the Abyss was quickly reported by Demon Fiend. When Wang Xian saw the news, a faint smile appeared on his face. He continued to order Mo Sha to wait for an opportunity to hunt the abyssal species and Imperial Court experts. However, on the second day, Wang Xian received a shocking news. A piece of information was directly sent to his brain. Respected Dragon King, the Abyss War has erupted, threatening the entire Imperial Star Domain and the entire human race. As a part of the human race, the Dragon Palace has been included in the recruitment order by the Imperial Court, ordering them to send at least 2/3 of their forces. Chapter 2738. It was a message with a sentence at the top and the situation of the Dragon Palace's forces at the bottom. Wang Xian looked at the message and fell silent. The communication device was created by the Imperial Court and maintained by the Imperial Court. As long as the Imperial dynasty wanted to, they would be able to investigate everyone's brain. They would be able to find out any communication records. And this message was about the Imperial Court's understanding of Dragon Palace's forces. Dragon Palace, 1 Undying God King Formation Master, 1 Normal Undying King. They had powerful war machines Dragon Peak. They had a powerful Treasure World Horizon ruler that could fight against Undying God King Pinnacle experts. Dragon Palace, 23 Ninth Order Undying God King experts, 66 8th Order Undying God King experts, 100,000 Undying God King experts and above. This was the Imperial Court's understanding of Dragon Palace's strength, and it was transmitted to his brain. When he saw the message, he pursed his lips. Is this a forced recruitment? Order every faction to send 2/3 of their forces to the Abyss battlefield. He murmured and frowned slightly. Such a message could also be said to be an order. Would they dare to not send their men over? Wang Xian could imagine that if they rejected the Imperial Court's order, they would definitely suffer a devastating blow. This was forcing all factions to participate in this war. How domineering! But the Imperial Court has the right to be domineering. He muttered and looked at the intelligence device in his hand. Now that he was holding onto the intelligence device, the Imperial Court should be able to lock onto his exact location. Looks like using the communication stone plate is a better choice. Wang Xian said faintly and fell into deep thought. Dragon Palace could not go against the Imperial Court's order. Based on the Imperial Court's understanding of Dragon Palace, sending 2/3 of their forces would mean sending over 40,000 God King experts. To send around 15 Ninth Order Undying God King experts, they could choose not to send Heaven's Horizon ruler, but Dragon Peak had to be sent. This strength is roughly the strength that Dragon Palace revealed when they went to the Abyss battlefield. Now the Imperial Court knows about it. He calculated in his heart and looked at Sky Formation. Sky Formation, go to Dragon Palace and send Dragon Peak over. Get all the experts from Heaven's Eye Arrow Unit and Mysterious Demon Unit to come over. Wang Xian said to Sky Formation. Dragon Palace could not ignore the Imperial Court's order and could not disobey. Imperial Dynasty had more than one God Emperor expert and their orders couldn't be disobeyed. It's Dragon King. Tianzhen nodded. Imperial Dynasty wants to use this method to reduce their losses. Wang Xian could understand what the Imperial Court was thinking. Over the past few months of war in the Abyss, the Imperial Court had lost close to 100,000 God King experts. They could only use this method to reduce the losses of the Imperial Dynasty. If all the experts from the Imperial Dynasty came, the chasm battlefield would probably be settled. After all, the combined strength of the entire Imperial Star region was still very powerful. One more thing. We can't let some forces on the Demon Islands get too close to the Dragon Palace. For example, the Beichuan clan and Dragon Python group. Wang Xian calculated in his mind. Because of the Sky Edge sect and the situation with the Night Clan, Wang Xian had to distance himself from these forces. Otherwise, he might be implicated in the future. The situation was not good for the Dragon Palace. A few months later, the crisis of the Night Clan had yet to be resolved. Wang Xian made a move and flew towards the planet in front of the Imperial Court battlefield. Have you heard? The Imperial Court has ordered all the experts in the Imperial Star region to enter the chasm battlefield. All the slightly stronger forces have to send 2/3 of their forces. Of course. This seems to be an order from the Emperor God experts of the Imperial Court. I heard that 2 guardians of the Imperial Court led 200,000 experts and were attacked by the Abyss race yesterday. Almost all 200,000 experts died. I heard that the Abyss is extremely dangerous now. Therefore, the imperial court issued this order. Who would dare to disobey the imperial court's order? When Wang Xian flew over, he could hear the discussions around him. The huge loss of the experts of the imperial court yesterday and the imperial court's order today had shaken the entire imperial star region. Wang Xian made a move and flew towards where the Emperor Star Maiden was. Wang Xian, Master. When Wang Xian and the rest arrived, the Emperor Star Maiden and Bei Shuang sensed his arrival and immediately went up to him. You guys didn't go out? Wang Xian looked at them and asked. Master, someone said that the abyss is extremely dangerous. Therefore, we didn't go in for now. Bei Shuang and the rest walked over and said. Wang Xian nodded slightly. Although the abyss was dangerous, Bei Shuang and the rest would definitely not be in any danger. All the members of the Dragon Palace, including Demon Fiend and the rest, knew that Bei Shuang was the disciple of the Dragon King. They couldn't wait to protect her. Why would they attack them? Master, have you received the Imperial Court's order? The Laozu and sect leader of the North Stream sect have received the order. Bei Shuang continued. Not many people from the sects and forces on the Demon Island entered the Abyss battlefield. Yes, I have. Wang Xian nodded slightly and looked at Bei Shuang. Go and tell the North Stream sect, Yu Duantian, Zhou Xiao, and the other sects to keep their distance from the Dragon Palace. Bei Shuang was slightly taken aback by his words, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. What's wrong, Wang Xian? Did something happen? The Emperor Star Maiden walked over and asked with a frown. Previously, when the Laozu of the Sky Edge sect attacked Bei Shuang, the experts of the Dragon Palace destroyed the entire planet and killed countless experts from the Sky Edge sect. Later, the Imperial Court's handling of the matter was slightly biased towards the Sky Edge sect, which displeased the Dragon Palace. The Emperor Star Maiden could also tell that something was wrong. Now that he said such a thing, you will know what's going on in the future. Wang Xian did not say much. The Emperor Star Maiden frowned slightly and did not continue asking. I'll tell the sect leader and the rest. Bei Shuang nodded with a thoughtful look on his face. The Imperial Court wants all forces to gather in 4 days. I'll stay here for a few days. Wang Xian said faintly and chatted with the Emperor Star Maiden and Bei Shuang for a while. The Imperial Court's order was for all forces to gather here in 4 days. 4 days was enough for the heavenly formation to drive the Dragon Peak over. According to Wang Xian's estimation, there should be Void God Emperor level experts to suppress the situation in 4 days. However, he did not know if the Imperial Court would give any other orders after 4 days. Fortunately, the venom-horned dragon was born in the Dragon Palace. Therefore, the Dragon Palace could receive some news from the Imperial Court and the Night Clan in time. Otherwise, he would have to consider fleeing in such a disadvantageous situation. Chapter 2739. Look, that's the Dragon Peak of the Dragon Palace. I heard that the Dragon Peak of the Dragon Palace is extremely powerful. They used it to suppress the Sky Edge sect. That's the 9 Cloud sect's 9 Cloud Palace. It's also an extremely powerful treasure. I didn't expect them to send someone over. That's Pingyi Island's broken sky. All the sects on the Demon Island are here. Currently, only the Demon Island hasn't erupted in the Abyss War. I heard something is happening on the Pingyi Island too. All the sects on the Pingyi Island are there to suppress the war. 4 days passed in the blink of an eye. At the front line of the Imperial Court's Abyss War, huge war machines were arriving. No force in the entire Imperial Star Domain dared to disobey an order from the Imperial Court. Especially when the Imperial Court stated the number of experts in a force. It was a warning, a reminder. Unless you wanted to escape to another stellar region, you would be restricted by the Imperial Court. On the Demon Island, there were 4 sects including the Dragon Palace. There were also over 100 other forces. Any force with over 100 Immortal King experts would receive the Imperial Court's conscription order. Dragon King, there are about 100,000 Immortal King experts on the Demon Island, excluding our Dragon Palace. Other than the 3 sects, there are tens of thousands of Immortal King experts on the Pingyi Island. Wang Xian, Tianzhen and the rest flew towards a planet. Tianzhen scanned the surroundings and whispered. There should be 200,000 immortal king experts here. Wang Xian said plainly. 200,000 immortal king experts did not include the people on the Cold Night Island. This was the border between Cold Night Island and the Imperial Court. The Night Clan of Cold Night Island and the people of another great sect were all on the battlefield. However, when Wang Xian scanned the surroundings, he could see the Night Clan flying towards the planet ahead. The planet ahead was a planet that the Imperial Court had gathered on. All forces would gather there in 4 days. Wang Xian and Tian Zhen came to a public square. When they arrived, there were already many people in the public square. Their arrival attracted the attention of many forces. Everyone knew the strength of the Dragon Palace. Among the sects, only the Night Clan was slightly stronger. Of course, the other forces did not know that an old ancestor of the Night Clan was about to become a god emperor. There was no doubt that the Dragon Palace was powerful. Some experts from various forces couldn't help but look over. The North Stream sect and the other forces had also arrived. When they saw Wang Xian and the rest, they were hesitant. However, they did not come over to greet him. They all understood what Bei Shuang was telling them. The Dragon King definitely had his reasons for asking Bei Shuang to personally tell them to stay away from the Dragon Palace. None of the forces stepped forward. Apart from the Dragon Palace, the Nine Clouds sect was one of the more powerful sects. Hey! Some forces from Cold Night Island have come as well. At this moment, a message came from the side. Wang Xian looked over and saw many experts flying over. Dragon King, Orokai, and the rest are here. Du Ju's voice came from the side. Wang Xian swept his gaze across and nodded his head slightly. Beside the group of experts from the Night Clan, the 2 Laozu from the Sky Edge sect, the sect leader of the Sky Edge sect, and 3 elders were also flying over. Old ancestor, it's the Dragon King. Orokai and the rest sensed Wang Xian's aura and spoke to the Laozu beside them. Being able to parasitize the World Edge sect master, Orokai had already completely immersed himself in this role. The 2 World Edge old ancestors did not have any suspicions. The 2 of them looked over with murderous intent in their eyes as they stared deadly at Wang Xian. That's the Dragon King? A doubtful voice was heard from the side. Father, it's him. He's the guy who made me kneel at the hero meet. A young and furious voice replied. The current leader of the Night Clan was seated beside him, and the young man beside him was Yi Shaohuang. Rest assured, brothers from the Sky Edge sect. Our Laozu will attain the Emperor realm in 2 months at most. At that time, the Dragon Palace will be wiped out easily, the leader of the Night Clan said plainly as he patted his son. This sentence was also meant for his son. That's right. As long as the Laozu of the Night Clan attains the Emperor realm, the Dragon Palace will be wiped out easily. The Dragon King can be killed easily. Yi Shaohuang's eyes were beaming with excitement as he drew his lips. Hehe, thank you, Clan Leader Yi and Young Master Yi. Upon hearing their words, the murderous intent in the eyes of the 2 elders from the Sky Edge sect gradually disappeared. They smiled. You're welcome. We'll be on the same side in the future. The leader of the Night Clan said with a smile. Hehe. Then we'll fight side by side with the Night Clan in the abyss. The 2 elders from the Sky Edge sect said. Haha, we also hope to fight side by side with the Sky Edge sect. The leader of the Night Clan also laughed. This also showed that the Sky Edge sect was willing to stand on the side of the Night Clan. The Night Clan was about to have a Void God Emperor, but they didn't have many Peak God Kings. The 2 elders from the Sky Edge sect could supplement their peak combat power. As they spoke, they walked straight to the front. Hey! Why is the relationship between the Sky Edge sect and the Night Clan so good? What's going on? The Sky Edge sect seems to be very close to the Night Clan. Their arrival instantly attracted the attention of all the forces. After all, they were the strongest force outside of the Imperial Court. But the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect were together. That meant something else. Everyone understood the situation between the Sky Edge sect and the Dragon Palace. It could be said that they would fight to the death. Now that the Sky Edge sect and the Night Clan were close, what about the Dragon Palace? The enemy of the enemy was a friend, but what about the enemy's friend? Although it wasn't 100% the enemy, It was still 70%. Everyone was a little surprised. Huh? Is the Dragon King not allowing us to get close to them because of the Night Clan? The Dragon King has received some news. North Chuan sect, the Dragon Python group, and even the Moon sect exchanged glances and frowned. They looked in the direction of the Dragon King and saw that he wasn't surprised at all. His eyes flickered. At this time, the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect walked straight to the front. When they were closer to Wang Xian, young Emperor Yi looked over and snorted coldly. Wang Xian looked at him without any change in his expression. The experts from the imperial court are here. However, at this moment, a voice rang out, causing everyone to turn their gazes over. At the front, 10 old men appeared out of thin air. When everyone saw these 10 old men, their hearts trembled slightly. The guardians of the imperial court, peak god king realm experts. The 10 guardians appeared and didn't speak. They stood in a row on the left and right, leaving a position in the middle. There was a seat in the middle. Chapter 2740. When everyone saw the 10 guardians of the imperial court standing on the two sides and the empty seat in the middle, everyone was shocked. Their hearts trembled as they watched quietly. Wang Xian looked at the seat and his pupils constricted. It was just as he had expected. Today, the God Emperor of the imperial court would shock everyone. Wang. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared on the seat. White light enveloped his entire body and the blurry figure looked unreal. There wasn't any powerful aura spreading towards the surroundings. But at this moment, everyone realized in shock that the surrounding scene seemed to have changed. The surroundings were enveloped by white light and filled with holy radiance. The figure sitting on the seat was like the Lord of Light and they were his believers. The entire region was under his control. This was the power of a divine ability. This divine ability was different from the divine abilities of the weaker realms. This was a nomological divine ability that could truly change the world. Peak god kings could touch the level of divine abilities. If they truly grasped divine abilities, it would be a key to becoming a void god emperor. Greetings, Lord God Emperor. In the next moment, all the leaders and experts of the forces reacted and immediately bowed respectfully. I called all of you here for the survival of the human race in the Imperial Star region. The danger this time isn't as simple as you think. Black Law Abyss species and Giant Beast Abyss species are both threatening the Imperial Star region. Once the Imperial Court is defeated, the entire Imperial Star region will fall and humans will become food for the Abyss species. The God Emperor shrouded in light sat there and said, Hearing his words, all the experts were shocked. Lord God Emperor, what does Black Law Abyss species and Giant Beast Abyss species mean? Are they really that powerful? The God Emperor paused and an old ancestor from the Nine Heavens Great Sect couldn't help but ask. The Black Law faction and the Enormous Beast faction is the collective name we use for the two Abyss species races. The Enormous Beast faction is a newly risen Abyss species race with 2 Void God Emperor level existences. As for the Black Law faction, it is the collective name for the 2 ancient Void God Emperor Abyss species. Right now, only 1 Black Law Abyss species God Emperor is controlling the battlefield. The God Emperor, who was shrouded in light, introduced with a calm voice. SSS, this. When everyone heard the words of this God Emperor, they were slightly shocked and their faces were filled with astonishment. Currently, the battlefield was being controlled by a Void God Emperor Abyss species, and there were 3 of them. The battlefield between the Pingyi Island and the Imperial Court will erupt very soon. That is the battlefield where the huge beasts attack, and the situation there is 10 times more dangerous than here. At that time, a true Void God Emperor level battle will erupt. The God Emperor shrouded in light continued to speak. At this moment, everyone realized the seriousness of the problem. At the start, they thought that the Imperial Court wanted to reduce their losses. But now, it seemed like the Imperial Court felt threatened. Next, I need to stabilize the battlefield here as soon as possible and recruit all the forces into the Abyss to hunt the Abyss species. You will receive the same heroes treatment. You can exchange the abyssal demons for merit points, and merit points can be exchanged for treasures. Also, the Imperial Court might organize a large-scale attack. At that time, all forces must participate. After the Divine Emperor, who was shrouded in light, said this, his figure dissipated. It was as if his real body hadn't arrived just now, but only a shadow. Our great ancestor has mentioned the basics. Recruiting all of you to hunt the abyss species will also earn you merit points from the Imperial Court. But since we have recruited all of you, it is not for you to mingle around. We will set up missions according to the strength of each force, and accumulate the required merit points. Otherwise, the Imperial Court will force all of you to carry out some missions. The God Emperor from the Imperial dynasty disappeared. A protector took 2 steps forward and said. The group of forces and experts nodded slightly. This was something they could already predict. Wang. The old man waved his arm, and the tokens flew towards the group of forces. There were more than 200 forces present, and the Imperial Court allocated different points according to their strength. Wang Xian took the token that flew in front of him, and looked at it calmly. 1 billion merit points, which means I have to kill 10 immortal King Realm Abyss species. He murmured, and smiled faintly. Dragon King, do we have 1 billion merit points? Du Ju stood at the side, and raised his eyebrows slightly. Wang Xian nodded faintly. I believe all of you know about merit points. As long as you complete the corresponding amount of merit points, you will complete the mission. You can use your own name to accumulate merit points and get on the hero leaderboard, an Imperial Court protector said, and pointed to the right. There was a humongous merit stele there. There were many eye-catching names and rankings on it. This was the hero leaderboard. As long as one was on this leaderboard, one's name would spread across the entire Imperial Star domain. Different from before, the current hero leaderboard had changed slightly, and there was an additional force leaderboard. The ranking of the abyss species hunted by the major forces. If a force could get on this leaderboard, it would naturally be the best publicity. Hero leaderboard? Wang Xian looked over, and raised his eyebrows. The other forces' leaders were also eager to try. If they could get on the hero leaderboard, it would be a great publicity for their forces. Some disciples might have already come to the Imperial Court. As long as you change your name on the AI, and add a force in front of it, for example, the Night Clan, the merit points will not only increase for the individual, but also for the entire force. Of course, the merit points can only be used once. The protector continued. Oh! As soon as he finished his sentence, Du Ju raised his eyebrows, took out his AI, and looked at it. He revealed a smile and moved it slightly. After he was done, he looked at the hero leaderboard. As expected, Du Ju, who was ranked first on the hero leaderboard, had changed. Du Ju of Dragon Palace, 4621000001 merit points. Dragon King, look. Du Ju opened his mouth and pointed to the first position on the hero leaderboard. Wang Xian looked over with a smile. Hey, look. Du Ju, who was ranked first on the hero leaderboard, has changed to Du Ju of Dragon Palace. Number 1 is actually someone from Dragon Palace. At this time, many experts were paying attention to the hero leaderboard. When they saw the change in the first position, it was immediately noticed by everyone. Some of them exclaimed, over 400 million points. This means that Dragon Palace has killed 4 immortal King Realm Abyss species. This, an expert from a major sect said in shock. The other forces were also shocked. Huh! At the front, the 2 Laozu from Sky Edge sect and the experts from Night Clan also looked over and raised their eyebrows. However, they did not notice that the Sky Edge sect leader and the 3 elders moved their palms, and an AI flashed across. Therefore, the leaderboard changed again. Chapter 2741, Number 3, Dragon Palace 85. Number 7, Dragon Palace 85. Number 20, Dragon Palace Demon 6. Number 28, Dragon Palace Demon Mountain. Number 1, while everyone was shocked that Du Ju had become Dragon Palace's Du Ju and that Dragon Palace had gained over 400 million points, there was another change in the rankings. Look, the name of number 3 has changed too. It's Dragon Palace 85, not just number 3, number 7, number 85, oh shit, he's from Dragon Palace again. Number 20, Dragon Palace Demon 6, number 28, Dragon Palace Demon Mountain, and, soon, all the experts noticed the other changes. On the rankings, there were 7 to 8 names that had changed. All of them had the words Dragon Palace. The first place Duju had over 400 million points, which meant that he had killed 4 Ninth Order Undying God King Realm Abyss species. The third place Bhe had over 300 million points, which also meant that he had killed 3 Ninth Order Undying God King Realm Abyss species. Number 7, number 85, had over 100 million points, which meant that he had killed a Ninth Order Immortal King Realm Abyss species. In addition to the other rankings, Dragon Palace's points had reached a total of 8 or 900 million. This, Dragon Palace's mission was about to be completed. Dragon Palace had already sent experts over to hunt the Abyss species. Some experts and leaders of the various forces said in shock. He, number 4, Mo Sho, is currently hunting the Abyss species in the Abyss. In addition to Mo Sho's points, Dragon Palace's points have exceeded 1 billion. At this moment, Duju said with a smile. He didn't bother to lower his voice and everyone could hear him clearly. Duju's words caused the surrounding crowd to be slightly stunned once again. Number 4, Mo Sho, is also from Dragon Palace. That's possible. Look, number 20 and number 28 both have the surname Mo. How many Abyss species has Dragon Palace killed to accumulate so many merit points? When everyone heard Duju's voice, they looked up and their faces were filled with shock. Number 1, number 3, number 4 and number 7 were all from Dragon Palace. How many powerful Abyss species had Dragon Palace killed? Even the Imperial Dynasty protectors looked over. They exchanged glances with one another and pursed their lips. In that case, the Dragon Palace would be able to fulfill the 1 billion merit point set for the Dragon Palace. I didn't expect the experts of the Dragon Palace to be so low-key and kill so many abyssal species unknowingly. The Imperial Court thanks the Dragon Kings of the Dragon Palace. A protector of the Imperial Court cupped his fists towards Wang Xian and said with a smile. The Imperial Court is really generous to take out so many treasures. Our Dragon Palace is here to earn some resources. Wang Xian replied with a smile. The Imperial Court also thanks the Dragon Palace for their contributions to the Imperial Star region. The Imperial Court Protector continued politely. Everyone, each of your powers has a fixed minimum amount of contribution points. Of course, the more you accomplish, the more treasures you can exchange for. Next, you can act together or act alone. Either way, it's up to you. Thereafter, the Imperial Court Protector said to the rest. Yes. The leaders and experts of the various forces nodded respectfully. Tomorrow, all forces shall enter the Abyss. Good luck, everyone. The 10 protectors said one last sentence and left. Dragon King, do you want to hunt the Abyss demons together? Dragon King, can you bring us along? Although we aren't strong, we aren't weak either. After the 10 Imperial Court Protectors left, some forces looked at Wang Xian and the rest and couldn't help but ask. With so many experts on the hero leaderboard, it represented the strength of the Dragon Palace. Moreover, they had just arrived. If the Dragon Palace brought them along, it would be a piece of cake for them to hunt the Abyss demons. Sorry. Wang Xian shook his head plainly at them before flying out of the place. The Dragon Palace killed over a dozen rank 9 Immortal King Realm Abyss demons. I'm afraid this achievement isn't much lower than the Imperial Court. I didn't expect the Dragon Palace to be so strong. Seeing Wang Xian and the rest leaving, some forces and experts shook their heads and sighed. Over at the Sky Edge sect's Night Clan, young Emperor Yi snorted. Let's go. After the Laozu ascends to the Emperor realm, the Abyss battlefield will be guarded by the Night Clan. Let's make some preparations over the next few days to see if we can hunt a powerful Abyss race. The Night Clan leader smiled faintly and said, Night Clan leader, if we join forces, we might be able to wipe out 1 or 2 large Abyss races. The 2 old ancestors from Sky Edge said, That's possible. We can't let the Dragon Palace show off. The Night Clan leader nodded faintly. If the Night Clan and Sky Edge sect worked together, 3 to 4 Immortal King Realm experts would be able to wipe out a powerful Abyss race. Dragon King, are we doing anything tomorrow? Duju asked with a smile as Wang Xian and the rest flew off the planet. Just now, The Dragon Palace was considered to be in the limelight. Even the guardians of the Imperial Court were shocked. Tomorrow, the Imperial Court has ordered all forces to enter the Abyss. They probably want to wipe out the Abyss monsters. At that time, the number of Undying God King peak stage experts will reach 10 or even more. This will undoubtedly prevent them from being surrounded. Under the situation of reducing the risk, we can attack a large group of Abyss demons. Wang Xian pondered for a while and said, since Dragon Peak was sent over, he would let Mo Sho cooperate to wipe out a large group of Abyss demons. Oh yes, Sky Formation. How's your research going? Wang Xian looked at Sky Formation and asked. Sky Formation had been following him recently. However, Sky Formation was researching something. A teleportation formation that could be used in the Abyss. When the teleportation formation was activated, they could escape instantly. The Abyss was a little special. Space could no longer be torn and teleported here. It was almost impossible for other array formation grandmasters to set up a teleportation formation. However, Sky Formation was different. He was the strongest array formation master in this dazzling starry sky. Now that he had become a Dragon Witch, his talent had increased by dozens of times. Dragon King, I'm already experimenting. I'll be able to produce it in 2 days at most. By then, we can teleport directly. However, there's a flaw. We can't teleport along with Dragon Peak. Dragon Peak is too huge. Sky Formation said to Wang Xian. All right. If we teleport, we will definitely encounter danger. Dragon Peak can be used as a cover. With your teleportation formation, our safety will be greatly guaranteed. Chapter 2742. Now that the teleportation array has been successfully researched, it won't be long before the teleportation talisman is successfully researched. Tianjin said with a smile. The teleportation formation also required a fixed location for teleportation. As for the teleportation talisman, one only needed to crush the teleportation talisman, and it would wrap around one's body and teleport within a second. This was a life-saving measure in the Abyss. Continue your research. Let's go to Dragon Peak. Wang Xian nodded his head and replied with a smile. Then, he flew straight to the Dragon Peak. Once the Heavenly Array life-saving talisman was completed, the Dragon Palace would be able to better deal with the upcoming crisis. Even if they faced the Imperial Court and the Night Clan, they would be able to escape. Next, all the powerhouses will enter the Abyss. Tell Demon Fiend to be more careful. Also, tell Demon Fiend to find a race that is easier to hunt. Find a chance to kill an Undying God King Abyss race. When they arrived at the Dragon Peak, Wang Xian spoke to Du Ju. It's Dragon King. Dragon King, how is the Imperial Court and the World Edge sect doing? Do you want to parasitize some experts of the Night Clan? Du Ju nodded and asked. There's no need for that for the time being. The Night Clan has joined forces with the Sky Edge sect. With the Orokai there, some information should be able to be transmitted quickly. Come on, let's enter the front of the Abyss. Wang Xian looked ahead and spoke to the Sky Array. It's Dragon King. Tianjin steered the Dragon Peak forward quickly. In the Dragon Peak, there were over 60,000 Undying God Kings of the Dragon Palace, a large portion of the Celestial Eye Arrow unit, Spike Dragon species and Starwood Dragon species. Go, go, go. Let's head into the Abyss to gather some information. We must complete the mission given by the Imperial Court. Everyone, you must be on your guard. Not long ago, 2 protectors of the Imperial Court led 200,000 disciples and experts to be killed. We must be on our guard. Let's see if we can find a force to cooperate with. When Long Feng flew into the Abyss, the other forces also flew into the Abyss and began to investigate the situation. A day passed by quickly. On the second day, all the forces gathered in front of the entrance of the Abyss. All forces enter the Abyss immediately. I hope that all forces can unite and work together to deal with the abyssal species in the Abyss. Not long after, an Imperial Court Protector's voice resounded. At the center, the Imperial Dynasty Protector led at least 10 million Imperial Dynasty experts into the Abyss. Around them, there were people from other factions to reduce the pressure, and they were also a lot safer. Come on, let's go in as well. Wang Xian spoke to the sky array. If the imperial court entered the abyss, they could also relieve the pressure on the Dragon Palace. In the past, when the Dragon Palace hunted the abyss species, it relied on other forces to attract the firepower, in addition to the Dragon Palace's own powerful attack power. When the Dragon Palace entered, it did not immediately hunt down the abyss species inside. Long Feng floated at the edge of the abyss, quietly waiting. Similarly, the other forces did not recklessly launch an attack. Instead, they were investigating the situation. In the beginning, it was relatively calm. Wang Xian stood on the command platform of the Dragon Peak and waited for the news. At the same time, he was waiting for the completion of the Heavenly Array formation. Dragon King, the Sky Horizon sect and the Night Clan are preparing to attack a group of abyssal species tomorrow. 2 patriarchs from the Sky Horizon sect and 2 peak stage god kings from the Night Clan will be leading the team. The target has been selected. Dragon King, the Imperial Court is preparing to attack an abyss race tomorrow. At that time, there will be 2 Imperial Court guardians leading the troop. On the evening of the second day, Wang Xian received 2 messages. One was from Yamata no Orokai and the other was from the parasitic Imperial Court expert. 2 messages. The Sky Horizon sect and the Night Clan have sent 4 peak stage Immortal King experts. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow and immediately sent a message to Demon Fiend. He also sent him the location of the abyss race that the Sky Horizon sect and the Night Clan were preparing to hunt tomorrow. He wanted to see if he could get Demon Fiend to create some trouble for them. It would be best if he could trap and kill some of their experts. As for the Imperial Court, Wang Xian was not prepared to do anything. All right, Dragon King. I'll go and fool the strongest abyss race tomorrow. If we can fool them, the Sky Horizon sect and the Night Clan will definitely suffer heavy losses. By the way, Dragon King, I have information about a group of abyssal clans. It's right next to the clans under my control. Tomorrow, the Dragon Palace will be able to hunt them down. I'll plant some of my own people in this group and pass the news to Du Ju. Soon, Demon Fiend sent the message. Wang Xian nodded. Within the abyss, the largest group had 3 peak stage Immortal King God Kings. Including Demon Fiend and the abyss race that they were attacking, there would be 5 peak stage Immortal King God Kings. At that time, the Sky Horizon sect and the Night Clan would also suffer heavy losses. Of course, the prerequisite was that Demon Fiend could fool the abyss race to help. Demon Fiend sent a message about the abyss race. There was a peak stage Immortal King God King God King God Kings and 13 peak stage Immortal King God Kings. This was a huge group that had over 200 million abyss race. However, given the strength of the Dragon Palace, they could easily annihilate them. Tomorrow, mobilize all our forces and annihilate this group of abyss race as soon as possible. Wang Xian passed the message to Sky Formation and said to him, "Yes, Dragon King. The teleportation formation will be completed tomorrow. Moreover, I've set up a layer of defense on Dragon Peak that can withstand an attack from an Emperor God. The time it takes is enough for us to escape." Sky Formation nodded. As a Void God Emperor in the past, he was very confident in his actions. There shouldn't be any Void God Emperor level abyss race attacking. Even if they do, there should be Emperor God experts from the Imperial Court behind them. As Wang Xian spoke, he looked at the back. This time, the Imperial Court had sent out tens of millions of elite disciples. There would definitely be Emperor Gods behind them to prevent any accidents. The relationship between the Dragon Palace and the Imperial Court was still very harmonious on the surface. If a God Emperor level abyss creature charged over, the Imperial Court's God Emperor would probably stop it. Therefore, tomorrow's battle should be very safe. Wang Xian preferred such safer battles the most. Just in case. Tianzhen smiled faintly. Wang Xian nodded his head with a smile. There was nothing wrong with being fully prepared. In the depths of the abyss, the baleful demon swayed its huge body and flew towards the strongest abyssal race in the center. In his mouth was a huge corpse. Demon Fiend wasn't doing this for anything else. He was just trying to get in touch with the 3-peak God King realm abyssal species to prepare for tomorrow's trap for the Sky Horizon sect and the Night Clan. The fact that the Dragon Palace controlled a peak God King Abyss species was something that no one would have expected. Chapter 2743, Roar, Roar. Within the dark abyss, a deep roar could be heard. Roar, roar, roar. Ahead of them, behind a group of asteroids, there was a huge group of abyssal species. The abyss species were floating around, and they were so densely packed that one could not see the end of them. The first roar attracted the attention of this huge group of abyssal species. At least a few billion pairs of eyes looked over, filled with warning. This was the largest group of abyssal species in the abyss, with billions of powerful abyssal species. In the center, 3-peak undying God King abyssal species laid in the void, roaring towards the source of the sound. Roar, roar. At this time, the roar continued. A huge figure was slowly approaching. The meaning of this roar was, 3 big brothers, little brother is here to pay a visit to you 3 big brothers. This roar caused the 3-peak undying God King abyssal species to be slightly suspicious. One of them stood up and looked ahead coldly. Roar, roar. The roar continued, this time towards the surrounding abyssal species. What it meant was for brothers to make way. I am going to pay a visit to the 3 big brothers. At the same time, a powerful aura spread out, causing the abyssal species to reveal a look of fear. The incomer was naturally Mo Sha. Roar, roar. A warning voice came from the abyssal species that stood up. Mo Sha roared, his voice was a little subservient, as he flew towards the 3-peak undying God King abyssal species. The 3 abyssal species stared at him suspiciously. Roar, roar. 3 big brothers, a brother over there asked me to give this to you. That brother said that a human is going to kill him and his species tomorrow. He hopes that the 3 big brothers can go and support him, Mo Sha said, as he respectfully placed the huge corpse in front of them. Roar. The 3-peak undying God King abyssal species looked at Mo Sha, then at the corpse. This was the corpse of a rank 8 undying God King abyssal species, killed by an Imperial Court expert. Roar. One of the undying God King abyssal species raised its head and swallowed the corpse. The other 2 did the same. Roar, roar. Demon Fiend roared from the side. In order to swindle these 3-peak undying God King abyss species, he had paid a huge price. Next, Demon Fiend continued to lure the 3 undying God King peak abyss beasts to attack the humans together and complete Lord God Emperor's orders. From time to time, he would try to please them with all kinds of words. Thus, within the abyss, low roars rang out incessantly. Time passed very quickly. Demonic Fiend kept talking. He was just short of selling his body. Dragon King, the teleportation device has been set up. I have connected it to the main Dragon Palace. Once we encounter an Emperor God level crisis, we can escape to the main Dragon Palace instantly. The next morning, the Heavenly Array told Wang Xian a piece of good news. Very well. Since that's the case, let's get ready to move. Wang Xian squinted his eyes and said immediately, yes. Tian Zhen nodded. All disciples of Dragon Palace, get ready for battle. Wang Xian ordered all the members of the Dragon Palace. It's Dragon King. In the Dragon Peak, all the members of Dragon Palace responded with fighting spirit. Depart. Tian Zhen bellowed as Long Feng flew forward slowly. The surface area of the Dragon Peak was comparable to a planet. It was much larger than the meteorites in front. The Dragon Peak headed straight for the large abyss beasts. Wang Wang. At this moment, the communication stone plate in front of Wang Xian sent 2 messages. The Imperial Court was attacking a large abyss beasts. At the same time, the Sky Edge sect and Night Clan were also attacking a group of abyss beasts. The Sky Edge sect and Night Clan had mobilized a total of 4 undying God King peak abyss beasts. They were prepared to kill the undying God King peak abyss beasts. Moreover, their strength was not any weaker than the Imperial Court. There were 13 level 9 undying God Kings and even more level 8 and level 7 undying God Kings. They were determined to win. I wonder how Demon Fiend is doing over there. Wang Xian murmured. He retracted his thoughts and stared at the abyss before him. Later, surround that undying God King peak abyss beasts and use Heaven's Edge ruler. Roving heavens, I will control the dragon machinery and kill them quickly. However, it's best to conceal yourself completely and not expose your strength. Wang Xian said to Tian Zhen. Don't worry, Dragon King. At such a distance, even the God Emperors won't be able to spy on us if we surround them. Tian Zhen nodded. Wang Xian nodded and landed on the screen in front of Tian Zhen. The screen could detect the abyss beasts in the surroundings. They were only half an hour away from their target. Half an hour was not a short distance. In fact, it was very far. Almost there. Let's charge over. Half an hour later, densely packed red dots appeared on the screen in front of Tian Zhen. With a stern look in his eyes, he drove Dragon Peak directly toward the huge meteorite in front of him. Boom! The meteorite crumbled instantly. The 200 million abyss beasts ahead had already noticed Dragon Peak's arrival. The leading Undying God King Peak abyss beast had also noticed Dragon Peak's arrival. However, the aura that Dragon Peak exuded did not make it feel threatened. It stared at Dragon Peak, who was charging towards them, lifted its head and let out a roar. In an instant, the 200 million abyss beasts let out deafening roars and charged towards Dragon Peak. Members of the Celestial Eye Arrow Unit, fire, kill. Starwood Dragon species, kill. Spike Dragon, conceal yourselves and get ready to hunt. Mao Zesen, Ao Xingmu and Ao Yarrow commanded. This was not their first time in battle. They did not need Wang Xian to give the order. Swish, swish, swish. In an instant, countless arrows shot towards the front. Every arrow carried a terrifying penetrative and offensive power. Thistles and thorns extended from the Dragon Peak, directly covering the front. Dragon King, Qi Tian, do it. Tian Zhen waved his arm. In front of the abyss, terrifying thorns formed into a huge thorny monster. 3 thorny monsters formed rapidly and locked onto the pinnacle Undying God King Peak abyss beast. They immediately surrounded it. When the pinnacle Undying God King Peak abyss beast saw the incoming thorns, it was hesitant. However, at that moment, the 3 bramble monsters had already arrived before it. Thorns began to wrap around it, wrapping around it. Let's go. Wang Xian shouted and flew towards the space surrounded by the 3 thorny monsters with roving heavens. Dragon machine! Wang Xian shouted again. The humongous dragon machine appeared in front of him. With a swift movement, he entered the head position. Wang! A bloodline connection was felt. Kill! Wang Xian stared coldly at the pinnacle Undying God King Peak abyss beast. Chapter 2744, Kill. Charging into the encirclement of the 3 thorn monsters, Wang Xian roared with battle intent. Entering the body of the dragon, he could feel the aura of an Undying God King pinnacle stage expert. With a thought, the armor-like dragon directly attacked the Undying God King pinnacle stage abyss species. Terrifying destructive power, incomparably powerful aura. Roar roar. The Undying God King pinnacle stage abyss species let out a furious roar and met Wang Xian's attack. Peng! A huge collision sound resounded and the body of the Undying God King pinnacle stage abyss species was sent flying. Wang Xian was slightly stunned when he saw this, then he squinted his eyes. Just by relying on the strength of the dragon, as long as he had enough time, he could kill this abyss species. This made Wang Xian recall the time when the Heaven Formation was used against the dragon. The Heaven Formation relied on the Dragon Peak Formation. Each thorn monster could kill an existence of the same level alone. But against the dragon, it was not done in half an hour and he had to use all his strength to capture it. The dragon's strength could be said to be able to withstand the attacks of 3 Undying God King pinnacle stage abyss species. This was also the reason why Wang Xian controlled the dragon to clash with the Undying God King pinnacle stage abyss species, causing it to be sent flying. Kill it in 2 minutes. Wang Xian's eyes lit up as he roared. Roar roar. Roving heavens roared, his huge body, the ocean-stabilizing godly pillar wrapped in blood-red chains, attacked the Undying God King pinnacle stage abyss species. Wang! On the heaven's edge ruler, roving heavens, and the rest floated above, attacking one after another. Around them, 3 thorn monsters that could kill an existence of the same level waved their thorns and attacked as well. In an instant, the surroundings of the Undying God King pinnacle stage abyss species were completely covered, there was no space to escape. Roar roar. The undying God King Pinnacle Stage Abyss species saw this, and its eyes were filled with fear as it roared. Peng peng peng. In the next instant, attacks landed on its body, causing it to let out cries of pain. It was not something it could defend against. Against Wang Xian and the rest, this undying God King Pinnacle Stage Abyss species had no way of defending. Looks like it won't even take 2 minutes. Wang Xian looked at the Abyss species at the pinnacle of the God King realm who couldn't put up any resistance. With a smile on his face, he launched an attack. Outside, Dragon Palace's 60,000 undying God Kings were fighting against the 200 million Abyss monsters. Among the 200 million, there were less than 20,000 undying God Kings. All Ninth Order Immortal God King realm experts were locked down by the Dragon Palace experts. When the whistling sound of arrows rang out, millions of abyssal monsters were killed. In the surrounding area, more than 10,000 spike dragons were like ghosts, easily hunting down the abyss species. No abyssal species could escape their assassination. The entire abyss race was quickly harvested. However, just as the Dragon Palace was fighting with a large group of abyssal race, millions of Imperial Court experts, led by the Imperial Court protectors, attacked another group of abyssal race in the middle. Compared to the battle at Dragon Palace, they were even more shocked. It was a shocking number. Ha ha ha, brother Fengyazi, let's kill this pinnacle of the God King realm abyss species in 5 minutes. At the same time, Sky Edge sect and Night Clan's army had also arrived before a large group of abyssal race. The Night Clan leader laughed and said to the 2 old ancestors from Sky Edge sect. They locked their eyes on a pinnacle of the God King realm abyss species and attacked it together. Alright, finish it in 5 minutes. To avoid any accidents, end it quickly. The old ancestors from Sky Edge sect and the rest roared as they locked their eyes on the pinnacle of the God King realm abyss species. Boom. Just as the Sky Edge sect and Night Clan clashed with the large group of abyssal race, the entire abyss suddenly shone brightly. A ray of light instantly flew towards the depths of the abyss. Roar. Following which, an earth-shattering roar resounded, causing the entire abyss to tremble. Heh! At this moment, the entire battlefield was shaking. Is this a contest between the Imperial Court God Emperors and the Abyss Race God Emperors? Wang Xian was taken aback by the area covered by the thorns. Subsequently, he squinted his eyes. Kill. The Imperial Court's great ancestor is restraining the God Emperor level abyssal species. Kill. In the Night Clan's Yu Tianya sect, all the Night Clan's leaders who knew about the Night Clan roared with glowing eyes. All disciples, don't hold back. Kill. Kill. All the experts of the Night Clan roared with fighting spirit. The 2 Sky Edge ancestors and the Night Clan leader attacked even more violently. The Peak God King species that was besieged let out a furious roar. Below, his subordinates were being killed one by one. If Tianya and the Night Clan worked together, it would be easy for them to destroy an undying God King abyss species. Roar. 3 big brothers, my little brother is asking for help. The humans are attacking them. Let's go and save him. 3 big brothers, it was this brother of mine who gave you the delicacies yesterday. Let's rush over and devour more delicious humans. Roar, 3 bosses, let's rush over. At the same time, in a corner of the abyss, an undying God King abyss species surrounded 3 other abyss species of the same level and roared non-stop, transmitting information to them. The 3 Peak God King abyss species were hesitant as they looked towards the same direction. Roar. Finally, the Peak Undying God King abyss species in the middle raised its head and roared. Roar. Around it, countless abyss species raised their heads and roared with killing intent. The Peak God King abyss species' eyes lit up when it saw this. 3 big brothers, let's go and destroy these humans. Go, go, go. This Peak God King abyss species was naturally Mo Sha. He roared and charged towards the direction of Sky Edge and Night Clan. The other 3 immediately followed. Rumble. Under the lead of the 3 Peak God King abyss species, the entire race followed behind. 3 big brothers, I will lead my subordinates to block their path of retreat and obtain more delicacies. Mo Sha roared. His subordinates, who were not far from him, immediately responded and flew towards the rear of the Sky Edge sect and the Night Clan. Mo Shaw had the information from Bhe and the others about their positions and combat strength. Naturally, he knew how to deal with them. Roar. The other three Peak God King Abyss species responded and stared at the battlefield with bloodthirsty eyes. Chapter 27:45. Ha ha ha, we're injured. Brothers, let's work harder. Within the Abyss, Night Clan leader and an old ancestor attacked the Peak Undying God King Abyss seed in front of them. Seeing large amounts of blood flowing out of its body, they became excited. All right. The two old ancestors from Sky Horizon roared with smiles on their faces. Ever since Yi Lung returned from the island, the future of the World Edge sect had been bright. Today, they had two choices. One was to join Night Clan and become a relative outside of Night Clan. With Night Clan Void God Emperor's favor, Night Clan would not mistreat them and would even treat them with great importance. Two was to rebuild Sky Horizon's glory, and Night Clan Void God Emperor would also help them. Their Sky Horizon was bright. Hunting these abyssal species could also accumulate resources for the World Edge sect. Hong hong hong. The attacks of the four landed on the Peak Undying God King Abyss seed in front of them. They were so strong that it could only barely defend. At most half an hour, we can wipe out this entire race. Their eyes were filled with excitement as they roared. Hoo hoo hoo. But all of a sudden, a series of roars could be heard. The roars were getting closer and closer, causing the entire Night Clan and Sky Horizon to be slightly shocked. What's going on? The four Peak Undying God King sensed this and their expressions changed. They immediately turned towards the direction of the roars. But at the next moment, they widened their eyes. Damn, what's going on? Their gazes swept over, and their expressions instantly changed. They stared at the dark abyssal race with embarrassed expressions. The three Peak Undying God King Abyss seeds were even faster. They could predict that in at most 10 seconds, the three Peak Undying God King Abyss seeds would be able to fly over. Damn it! Why is there such a huge tribe charging towards us? Damn it! The leader of the Night Clan growled with an ugly expression. His heart sank a little. Damn, why is this happening? Such a huge race. Not good, Night Clan leader, we are not their match. Sky Horizon old ancestor Feng Yazi swept his gaze over and roared. All disciples, retreat immediately, all disciples retreat immediately. The patriarch of the Night Clan gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and roared loudly. Let's stop these three Peak Undying God King Abyss beasts first. One of the Night Clan's old ancestors had an ugly expression on his face as he charged towards the three Peak God King abyssal species. The two patriarchs of the World Edge sect immediately followed. The arrival of the three Undying God King Pinnacle Abyss species had completely shattered their situation. Most importantly, the strength of this group was too strong. It was not something that the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect could resist. At this time, all the disciples had to quickly retreat, otherwise they would suffer heavy losses. There's news from the Imperial Court that the abyssal species in the Abyss might have evolved. It seems like it's true. The leader of the Night Clan thought to himself with an ugly expression. Last time, the Imperial dynasty had suffered heavy losses, and it was similar to their current situation. During the battle, a large number of abyss monsters suddenly appeared and attacked. As a result, almost all of the 200,000 Imperial Court experts and disciples were killed. Who would have thought that they would run into him today? Run, run. The group of experts and disciples looked to the right and their expressions changed drastically. Without the slightest hesitation, they immediately fled toward the rear under the protection of the experts from the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect. Sneaky attack, hey. However, at this time, Mo Shaw led a group of abyssal species and flew over silently. Under his control and the group of venom-horned dragons, none of the abyssal species dared to roar or expose their berserk position. Mo Shaw and the huge abyssal species separated from the start and flew closer to the edge of the abyss. When he saw the experts from the Sky Edge sect and the Night Clan retreating, his face was filled with ferocious excitement. Roar, roar, roar. Little ones, kill them. Seeing that the distance between them and the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect was closing in, Mo Shaw roared ferociously. Boom. In the next moment, he attacked the experts from the two great forces in front of him with a terrifying aura. This time, the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect had sent a total of 2 million elites. Most of them were disciples of the Night Clan. Oh no, there's another abyssal species here. Clan leader, patriarch, help. There's another peak undying god king abyssal species here. When Moshaw flew towards them, the faces of the experts and disciples of the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect changed drastically. Their faces were instantly filled with fear. A peak undying god king abyssal species was flying towards them. What awaited them was a massacre. Boom! The demon fiend raised his head and spat out a ball of sulfuric-smelling flames in front of him. In an instant, hundreds of thousands of experts and disciples were shrouded by the sulfuric flame. Dodge! Dodge immediately! Everyone who was retreating in an orderly manner shouted in fear. The experts tried their best to dodge the terrifying sulfuric flame. However, Moshaw's attack instantly hit 200,000 to 300,000 experts and disciples. They screamed in pain and some died immediately. Boom! The flame on his body rushed towards the group of Sky Edge and Night Clan disciples. The flame enveloped the surrounding corpses and absorbed them into his interspatial ring. Oh no! Damn it! Why is there another race? At this time, the great ancestor of the Yi clan, who was in front, looked over and roared with bloodshot eyes. Old brother Yi, we will block these 3 peak undying god king abyssal species. You go and support them. The 2 old ancestors from the Sky Edge sect looked over and their hearts sank. Bastard, die. The Night Clan old ancestor did not hesitate and rushed over with a furious expression. Any later and the entire Night Clan and Sky Edge sect disciples would be slaughtered by that peak undying god king abyssal species. Cake. Moshaw saw an undying god king abyssal species rushing over and laughed sinisterly. With a sweep of his tail, hundreds of thousands of experts were instantly killed. I will block that peak undying god king. You guys kill those from the Night Clan and Sky Edge. 2 consecutive attacks killed hundreds of thousands of Night Clan and Sky Edge sect disciples. Moshaw saw the Night Clan old ancestor flying over and transmitted his voice to the back. Behind him, Moshaw's entire race had also arrived. In just tens of seconds, he had killed 500,000 to 600,000 people from Sky Edge and Night Clan. All disciples, flee. All experts, lead your disciples and escape from the abyss. The Night Clan patriarch looked down and roared with a solemn expression. Chapter 2746. Inside the abyss, the area where the Night Clan and Sky Border sect disciples were at was a scene of carnage. The sudden appearance of Moshaw and the rest had resulted in the deaths of many of the disciples from the 2 factions. Especially under such circumstances, the sudden appearance of Moshaw had stopped them from retreating. At this moment, the billions of abyssal species in front of them had already rushed over. Most importantly, on the right side of their retreat route, more than 100 million abyssal species were attacking them. At this moment, everyone from the Sky Border sect and Night Clan had ugly expressions, their hearts pounding. Why were they so unlucky? All disciples, follow me, fly towards the left and find a chance to retreat from the abyss. An elder of the Night Clan shouted in a deep voice when he saw this scene. All elders and deacons, stay behind and defend against the abyss species attack. Another elder of the Night Clan roared. Yes. A series of replies rang out as all the experts moved to the back and launched their attacks towards the abyss species. All experts, lead the weaker disciples and fly as fast as possible. Sky Border sect leader roared as he swept his gaze across. Yes. The group of undying god kings immediately led the remaining disciples to escape towards the left. Behind them, a group of abyssal species roared and let out a deafening roar in unison. Countless energy blasted forward. The group of experts from the forces that brought up the rear resisted with difficulty for a moment before immediately escaping. However, at this moment, an elder of the Night Clan suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream as his body was sent flying backwards. 5th elder. A few deacons looked over and their faces changed. But at this time, 5 undying god king abyss species pounced towards that elder. Damn it. Let's go. Old 5, we will take revenge for you. A sorrowful voice could be heard as the rest of the elders turned and fled. At this time, They could not send reinforcements or they would be overwhelmed by the endless abyss species. A level 9 Undying God King. The 5 level 9 Undying God King abyss species pounced over and killed the Night Clan elder. One of them transmitted a message with a smile in his eyes. Continue, kill. Another abyss species transmitted a message and the 5 of them continued charging forward. Beast, beast. At the side, seeing the disciples of their own faction fleeing for their lives and the death of an elder, their expressions were incomparably furious. As they fought, they guided their disciples in the direction of their retreat, paying attention to their situation. Not long after, a few more screams sounded out. 2 deacons and an elder had fallen. Roar. If this goes on, even if we can escape, we will suffer heavy losses. In the sky, the Night Clan Master and the Great Ancestor felt their hearts bleeding. We, the Night Clan, are requesting for reinforcements. If you are willing to lend us a hand, we will repay you tenfold. The leader of the Night Clan roared with a gloomy face. His cry for help spread far and wide. What had happened to the Night Clan? The Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect have joined forces. This time, they have the most peak stage God Kings on their side. What's going on now? At the center, the 2 protectors of the Imperial dynasty were slightly shocked when they heard the cry for help. They were well aware of the strength of the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect. Could it be that other tribes have gone to attack them? The 2 exchanged glances and were slightly shocked. But at this moment, they could not leave. Behind them, the experts and disciples of the Imperial dynasty were also slightly shocked. Success. At this moment, at the location of the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian looked at the dying peak stage Undying God King abyss species. When he heard the cry, he raised his eyebrows and smiled. The Night Clan's cry for help meant that Mo Sha had brought them great trouble. Fart. Dragon King, it's done. At this moment, Roving Heavens said with a smile. Wang Xian waved his arm and kept the corpse of the peak stage Undying God King abyss species. Let's get rid of the other abyss species, he said with a smile. While the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect were in deep trouble, the Dragon Palace was reaping the fruits. After getting rid of the peak stage Undying God King abyss species, Roving Heavens started hunting the rest. This was easy for him. The group of rank 9 Undying God King abyss species were easily killed by Roving Heavens. What happened next was a one-sided massacre. In less than 5 minutes, over 200 million abyss species corpses were collected. 1 peak stage Undying God King abyss species and 13 rank 9 Undying God King abyss species. After this, I'll have 2 Laozu of the Sky Edge sect parasitize. Wang Xian squinted his eyes and said with a smile. Once the parasitized the Sky Edge sect, the Dragon Palace would be able to grasp more information and take more initiative. Dragon King, there's a large number of abyss species flying towards us from the right. Just as Wang Xian flew to the command platform of the Dragon Peak, Tianjin said. Wang Xian looked at the screen in front of him. There were dense red dots on it and these red dots were moving towards him rapidly. He lifted his head and looked to the right before squinting his eyes. What a spectacular sight. Gradually, figures appeared in Wang Xian's sight. A group of more than 1 million people was frantically flying towards them, followed by billions of abyssal species. And in the sky, there was a huge battle. 4 Pinnacle God King experts against 5 Pinnacle God King abyss species. Seems like Mo Sha did well this time, Wang Xian murmured with a smile on his face. Now that the Night Clan and the Sky Edge sect were enemies, the more casualties they suffered, the more advantageous it would be for the Dragon Palace. There's a huge mountain ahead. That's the Dragon Peak, the Dragon Peak. At this moment, at the very front of the World Edge sect's Yi clan, which had more than 1 million people fleeing, an elder brought young Master Yi along as they fled. The elder looked ahead and suddenly saw a huge mountain towering in the abyss. He growled in a low voice. The Dragon Peak of the Dragon Palace? Yi Shaohuang asked with a gloomy face. Yes, it's the Dragon Peak. The Dragon Palace has pinnacle immortal king experts. If they are willing to help, we'll be saved. That elder shouted with his eyes wide open. The Dragon Palace will save us. Yi Shaohuang's expression changed. The faces of the elders at the side were also extremely ugly. "We, the Night Clan, request for reinforcements from the Dragon Palace." That elder gritted his teeth. At this time, he could only try his best. "Interesting. Asking for reinforcements from us?" Wang Xian sneered when he heard the elder of the Night Clan. "What a bunch of fools," he shouted directly. Chapter 2747, What a Bunch of Fools. When Wang Xian bellowed, his words reverberated in the ears of everyone in the vicinity. Everyone from the Night Clan heard this sarcastic remark, and their faces turned ugly. The leader of a force called them a bunch of fools. If word got out, the Night Clan wouldn't be able to afford it. However, some experts and disciples of the Night Clan also understood that it was too difficult to get Dragon Palace to help them. Mainly because they were too close to the Sky Edge sect. But the core disciples also knew why they were so close to the Sky Edge sect. "This Dragon King deserves to die." Young Emperor Yi, who was running at the front, roared with murderous intent. They didn't have high hopes, but Dragon King's public humiliation infuriated them. But they couldn't do anything about it. Wait for Laozu to become an emperor and destroy Dragon Palace first. The old man beside young Emperor Yi roared with a gloomy face. Damn it. In the sky, the leader and Laozu of the Night Clan, who were struggling to fend off the 5 pinnacle immortal King God King Abyss species, heard this. "Let's go, we'll lure the 5 pinnacle immortal King God King Abyss species to the Dragon Peak and let Dragon Palace attract some firepower. Those 5 pinnacle immortal King God King Abyss species will definitely attack the Dragon Peak. At that time, Dragon Palace will have to take action. Once we have one person free, we can lead the disciples to escape." At this moment, old ancestor Sky Edge, Feng Yazi's voice rang in their minds. Feng Yazi and the rest were filled with hatred towards Dragon Palace. Now that there was a chance to cause trouble for Dragon Palace, they were naturally happy to see it. "Alright, let's go, we'll lure these beasts towards the Dragon Peak." The leader of the Night Clan did not hesitate and immediately shifted the battlefield towards the Dragon Peak. For a war of this level, the speed of shifting the battlefield was very fast. Especially against the Abyss species, it was much easier. Heh! Dragon King, they want to lure the 5 pinnacle immortal King God King Abyss species towards us. At this moment, Tianjin saw the 9 pinnacle immortal King God King Abyss species moving towards them. Given the size of the Dragon Peak, it would definitely be affected if the battle of this level took place near the Dragon Peak. They wanted to force Dragon Palace to take action. Compete. Wang Xian bellowed with a murderous look in his eyes. "Experts of the Night Clan, experts of the world's edge, I advise you not to bring the battlefield here." He opened his mouth and shouted coldly. "Ha ha ha, we are not a match for this group of abyssal species. We were not led here. We were forced here." The leader of the Night Clan laughed out loud, trying to disassociate himself from this matter. "If that's the case, we'll help you deal with these 5-peak undying God King Abyss creatures. However, in order to prevent our Dragon Palace disciples from being attacked by other abyssal species, we need to defend." Upon hearing his words, Wang Xian smiled eerily. He gestured to the heavenly formation beside him. "Ha ha ha, we're here to help you. Don't let the other abyssal species hinder us." Heavenly formation waved his arm, and all the disciples of Dragon Peak fled in the same direction. 3 bramble monsters instantly manifested. Su su su. At this time, Ao Xingmu took the lead and rushed out. All the other starwood dragons flew out at the same time. A series of thorns appeared in front of them, forming an incomparably powerful thorns defense. This defense covered an area of over 1 billion square kilometers, blocking all the escape routes of the disciples and experts of the Night Clan and Sky Edge sects. "Dragon Palace, what are you doing?" The members of Dragon Palace suddenly made a move, and a barrier appeared in front of them. In the sky, the leader of the Night Clan saw this and his expression changed as he roared with killing intent. "Of course, we're preparing to help you deal with the peak undying God King Abyss species." Wang Xian stared at the leader of the Night Clan and said sarcastically, "Rumble." As he spoke, the 3 bramble monsters flew up into the sky slowly. Dragon Palace was indeed preparing to deal with a peak undying God King Abyss species. "Mo Sho, we'll kill one." Don't let the experts of the Night Clan and Sky Edge go down to support. At the same time, Heavenly Formation transmitted his voice to Mo Sha. Demon Fiend nodded without a trace. Roving Heavens, go and cooperate with Heavenly Formation to kill that peak Undying God King Abyss species. Ao Jian, bring Sky Edge Ruler and Dragon Tool over too. Wang Xian squinted his eyes, waved his arm, and passed the mother nest to Ao Jian. Yes, Dragon King. Roving Heavens replied. Ao Jian led the 3 Ninth Order Undying God King Realm experts and flew up into the sky. That expert from the Night Clan, our Dragon Palace will help you deal with a peak Undying God King Abyss species, Heavenly Formation said to the old ancestor of the Night Clan. He controlled the 3 bramble monsters to attack one of the peak Undying God King Abyss species. The 3 bramble monsters immediately attracted the attention of the 3 bramble monsters, and the surroundings were covered with brambles, forming an independent space. Roving Heavens, Ao Jian, and the rest moved and entered the space covered with brambles. Seeing that the Dragon Palace was really making a move, the leader of the Night Clan and the rest were slightly stunned. Dragon King, remove your defenses immediately. Now. However, the leader of the Night Clan bellowed as he looked down with an ugly expression. I'm sorry, I'm an array master. I need to control the 3 bramble monsters formed by the array. At this time, we can't let the other abyss species near us. We're just helping you guys. Heavenly Formation chuckled and said. Damn it. They're doing it on purpose. The leader of the Night Clan and the rest cursed with a gloomy expression. The Dragon Palace was doing it on purpose. However, the Dragon Palace did help them fend off a peak Undying God King Abyss species. Even if others saw it, they couldn't say anything. After all, the Night Clan and Sky Edge sect were the ones who lured the battlefield here. The other party was an array master. What else could they say? The array master who was getting close to them was extremely weak. The Night Clan was obviously trying to trick the Dragon Palace, and the Dragon Palace was doing the same to the Night Clan. Clan leader, old ancestor, save us. At this time, the ones who were the most panicking were undoubtedly the millions of people who were fleeing below. They saw the huge defense in front of them blocking their way. If they were to pause for even a moment, they would be drowned by the countless abyss species behind them. Everyone was terrified. I'll pull myself out. You guys help me fend off the abyss species in front of me. I just need to hold them off for tens of seconds. The leader of the Night Clan looked over, gritted his teeth and shouted. With one less peak Undying God King Abyss species, the pressure on them was greatly reduced. At this time, there was a chance for one of them to pull himself out and rescue the disciples. All right. Old Ancestor Sky Edge and Old Ancestor of the Night Clan responded immediately. The 3 of them were prepared to hold off the 4 peak Undying God King Abyss species. However, at this time, an extremely violent roar was heard. Mo Sha went berserk.